On Sunday, September 12th, 1954, at 3 p.m., members of the Texas Lutheran community gathered here in this place, and they gazed at new light streaming through new stained glass windows, and they dreamed of future days when their sons and their daughters would be called to be light for the whole human race. And they named and dedicated this space the Chapel of the Abiding Presence. Today, almost 57 years later, we gather in this special place, and the new light continues to stream in upon us, upon a new generation of sons and daughters, the beloved children of God, who are listening for their call to be light for the whole human race. Over the years, yesterday and now today, God has truly chosen to abide in this place, to be a strong and life-bearing vine, a vine that now branches off into you and me, that we might bear fruit for the kingdom. This year's campus ministry theme is Abide. We return to the hopes and dreams of those who first envisioned the Chapel of the Abiding Presence. Our theme verse is from the Gospel of John. Abide in me as I abide in you. And just as a branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine and you are the branches. Those who abide in me and I am them bear much fruit, because apart from me, you can do nothing. The Chapel of the Abiding Presence has not always been known by that name. During the 50s, 60s, and into the 70s, students would quietly refer to this space as the Chapel of the Required Presence. I was looking at an old student handbook. In fact, it was so old, it was printed in German in the first half and then English in the second half. It was entitled Regulations for the Lutheran College at Seguin, Texas. The very first rule, rule number 1, every student is required to attend the devotional exercises quietly and with dignity. Required with dignity, quietly. Those were the good old days. Not really. A few years ago, I was working in the chapel on a Saturday when an alum from the 60s came through for a visit. He was traveling through the area, and it had been some time since he had seen the campus. So he was walking around and noticing all the changes. And for the most part, he liked what he saw. He liked the changes, signs of progress. But he was not happy with the chapel. He began by showing me the area where he used to sit. That was his assigned seat. He pointed up to the balconies. That's where the professors took roll, looking down upon us. And then he sarcastically mentioned, we used to call it the Chapel of the Required Presence. And then he turned his agitation about the chapel against me. He said, I can't believe you changed things in here. That worship screen is awful. It's not right. Are you really a pastor? I tried to explain how we use the screen, how it helps engage students, but he would have none of it. He was angry. He did not care that students came to chapel because they wanted to. He did not care that students were making connections to the gospel. He did not care that it had become a creative place of joy and passion. He was not interested in an abiding presence. He preferred the old required presence. Again, since he suffered, he wanted all of you to suffer. Well, I like the new and improved Chapel of the Abiding Presence, but not because of the technology, although I confess I love all the toys I have to play with in here, creative and fresh ways to proclaim the gospel. But I like it because chapel on this campus is no longer about fulfilling a requirement. Chapel is about relationships, about creating community, about discovering God fleshed out in community, about the Word coming to life. And in that experience, finding God deep inside of us, experiencing grace and love, we hear God calling us into lives of meaningful and purposeful service. And all that happens because God abides in this place, in this community, here in this chapel, and in between the lines of just about everything that happens on this campus. While it is no longer the first rule in our handbook, the desired outcome is being met. God's faithful presence is here in this place. The vine is healthy. And by the way, I am an ordained pastor in the Lutheran Church. I have a little card that says so. In our reading today, God invites us to abide in me as I abide in you. And Jesus reminds us, those who abide in me and I in them bear much fruit, because apart from me, you can do nothing. So it is that we must ask, what does it mean to abide? We know it's not required, but what does it mean? Abide is a great word, a rich word, and a word that has something for all of us. It means much more than just a place to live. So if you go to the dictionary, here's what you're going to find when you look up abide. To wait for, await. To endure without yielding, withstand. To accept without objection. To remain stable or fixed. To continue in a place. To sojourn. In which way have you been invited to abide this year? Some of you are being called to simply be here and wait. To take some time to listen. To stop all you're doing and just be. By the way, that does not mean that you can skip classes and homework. Maybe you need to listen and reflect a bit more and not react so much. Not fall into the same unusual ruts or familiar routines of life. Perhaps you're waiting for that still small voice, that moment when all things will become new, that aha moment when your great calling in life will be revealed. Come into the chapel to listen. Be part of the community, and be open to new ways of understanding life. Measure twice and cut once. Abide, be still, and know that I am God. Some of you are being called to endure, to be patient and grind it out, to finish the race that is before you. Perhaps there's a lot of work before you this semester, a GPA to raise up from the dead, a hard requirement to finish, something that you just got to get done so you can move on to something else. Come into the chapel for renewal and for encouragement. Engage the community to find strength, strong arms, and strong wills that will help carry you through. Don't try to do it alone. Abide and get it done. And some of you may be being called to remain stable, to hang in there, to stay the course. Perhaps you are in a confusing place, in a path that is not clear, and you're tempted to just give up, to stop, to go away. Maybe you need to hang on to the vine a little longer. Resist the temptation to disconnect. Patiently wait on that season in which you are destined to bear fruit. So abide on the vine. Stay in the community. Look for some good fertilizer that will help you grow. Take a class from Dr. RJ. His lectures are full of fertilizer. Good fertilizer. This is a good place to find yourself when you are lost and confused. So stick around, tarry, abide. And some of you are being called to sojourn, to abide in a strange land, to go off on an adventure. Abide by signing up for an experience that will challenge your comfort zones. Maybe it's time for you to abide in a different kind of way. Study abroad, or just cross over the street and abide with our neighbors in Seguin. Remember to sign up for hot dogs. God is present everywhere, but perhaps especially present for you in a strange place, a strange land, a foreign land, waiting there to abide with you. There are many ways to abide, but true abiding always involves two things, a relationship and the bearing of fruit. To truly abide means to be in relationship, and a relationship with God in, with, and through community. The body of Christ gathered in a particular place, here in this chapel. As Americans, we are constantly encouraged to go it alone. That's the American way. Pick yourself up by your own bootstraps and get it done. But unfortunately, that's a lie. As Christians, we are called to abide, to connect to the vine, to rely on the vine. Jesus reminds us, because apart from me, you can do nothing. To truly abide means to be in a relationship. And when you abide, things happen. You bear fruit. Another way of saying that would be that things change. If you abide, your life will change, and probably in a dramatic fashion. So what might that mean for you? Change can be exciting, and it can be scary. But then again, it would be much worse if you went away to college and you didn't change. if you chose not to abide, if you chose to be ordinary and safe. So abide. Make the chapel your abode. Hang out here. Hang out all over campus. Take in all the fertilizer that all the professors have been working hard on. And bear good, passionate fruit. Abide and begin an extraordinary life. As this new academic year begins, I want to welcome you all to the Chapel of the Abiding Presence. It's not required, but making it a part of your life will make all the difference here at TLU. Amen.